Very good evening to you. You're watching Biz1st in Focus. In the recent past, we have been talking to you about the national payment platform initiated by the Central Bank of Sri Lanka with a company called Lanka Clear Private Limited. Now, we did not know at that moment exactly what Lanka Clear is, but we have been continuously reporting to you the role and the task of Lanka Clear Private Limited. Today, we are going to talk to the chairman of Lanka Clear Private Limited, Mr. Anil Amarasuriya. Good evening to you, sir.
Good evening.
Thank you very much for being here with us.
My pleasure.
At the outset, let me ask you, we have been reporting about the national payment platform that you all have taken steps to create with the Central Bank of Sri Lanka, which we saw about 3 weeks ago. It came out with the initiative of the State Minister and the Minister of Finance. Let me at the outset ask you, what does Lanka Clear do at the moment?
Well, in a nutshell, Lanka Clear is the payment network operator in Sri Lanka. It's a company that is owned by the Central Bank, 28%, the two state banks, combined state ownership will be 48%, and the balance by the other commercial banks operating in Sri Lanka. It's a public-private partnership. It's a limited liability company. And we carry out tasks that are assigned to us, which have to be mandated as per the regulations of the country. The company was started in 2002 to take over the check clearing that was handled by Central Bank. Now, that manual process was a tedious, unproductive process. Long
time consuming, yes.
So that's where Lanka Clear invested with the capital that it raised from the commercial banks, shareholders. It created in cutting edge technology at that time, and what we call check truncating, where an image of the check is sent to Lanka Clear, which will process it and pass it through to the paying bank. The paying bank will look at the image of the check, decide whether everything is in order, whether there's money in the customer's account, and then they will decide whether to pay it or return it.
Right.
If it's paid, then the net settlement takes place via Central Bank. If the check is returned, the image goes back. Now, previously, that process on average took 2 days to 7 days. And in certain instances, it was indefinite.
Right.
If it was Jaffna or some place where the communications were disrupted, then
we don't know how long it will take.
It will take. Today, we are proud to say it's done C+1. You deposit the check today at your bank, and tomorrow before 2, you will know whether the check is paid and the proceeds are credited to your account.
So, if I'm right in asking this, Mr. Amarasuriya, Lanka Clear Private Limited is the only company in the country that does this at the moment with the Central Bank. There is no other private entity that is involved in check clearing.
This is a function of the Central Bank that is
given out for a public-private partnership.
Yeah.
Mr. Amarasuriya, now I want to ask you another question. Now, various views have been expressed throughout that the Central Bank should only be a regulatory authority when it comes to handling the finance, the apex financial body of our country. Now, even the State Minister of Finance recently said that the Central Bank should only be the regulator and it should not be playing dual roles. What is your view on this? How is the public-private partnership, is it a positive thing, or do you also see this as the Central Bank should only be the regulator?
Well, if you take Lanka Clear, the public-private partnership of Lanka Clear is an excellent arrangement.
Right.
Why I say that is, you need regulatory oversight in most of the functions that are assigned to us. Take the check truncating of nationally important, take the common ATM switch, take the internet banking, take the mobile POS, name it what we are doing. It cannot be done without proper regulatory oversight. Now, how can you achieve that? If you are represented on the board without having majority, 28% is not a majority control. there are commercial banks that own 52%, private commercial banks. So I think it's a good arrangement. So thus far it has worked perfectly. No interference, but we have to get whatever we do has to be approved by the regulator, because it comes within the regulatory framework, be it the Monetary Law Act, be it the Payment and Settlement Act, be it the Banking Act. So when the regulator is also engaged, you don't have to go a mile and then pull back. From day one, you know whether it's permitted or not. If it's not permitted, fine, let it go. Do something that is permitted.
Ms. Amasuri, let me ask you the flip side of that question. Now, you say that the current arrangement between Lanka Clear Private Limited and the central bank is an excellent arrangement. But do you think in the future, with the policy of the ministers coming in, there are definitely political changes that are happening in the country. Do you think that this is the system that should continue as well? What is your view on that in the future?
Well, we can look at what is happening in the world. We don't have to invent the rules. We can look at what is happening elsewhere. For example, a similar body in Australia is regulated not by the equivalent of the central bank in Australia, but by another regulator.
Right.
So there are other models that can be followed. I am not going to say this is the perfect model. No, I won't say that. But this is a model that has worked, a model that has worked successfully. So if you want to change something that is successful and working smoothly, you have to have good reasons.
Right.
So if the policymakers, if the government wants to change that model,
it has to go from good to better. And
good to better and not from good to bad.
With that, we go into a short commercial break. Stay with us. You are watching Biz1st in Focus. Welcome back to Biz1st in Focus. We are in discussion with Mr. Anil Amarasuri, the chairman of Lanka Clear Private Limited, which is a company owned by the central bank, the state banks and the commercial banks of our country, operating with regard to clearing our checks that we deposit at banks and so on and so forth. Mr. Amarasuri, we were talking about the central bank's involvement in the Lanka Clear Private Limited. I want to take you a bit further from there and talk to you about these payment platforms that everyone is talking about. We know that the Sri Lanka Customs operates a payment platform called Asikuda, and there was a request from Sri Lanka Customs to create a system where the commercial banks are together with the Asikuda system so that they can also make payments to Sri Lanka Customs, and you all were brought in to create a system, and recently we saw the system going online for the first time. Mr. Amarasuri, I want to ask you, what is this payment platform that we are talking about? Is this a payment platform that is available nationally where payments can be done, or is this just the first step of going national?
I would say it's the first step of going national. Right now it's only the customs payments to the Department of Customs that can be done through this platform. The Customs Act, I believe, states that they cannot release goods until the payment is made to the Director General of Customs account. Now, the Director General of Customs account is maintained at two state banks, Bank of Ceylon and People's Bank. So, if a customer of commercial bank or at national bank were to log into their internet banking or go to the bank itself, the bank is not able to immediately credit the Department of Customs, Director General of Customs account.
Right.
Because that's with the two state banks. So that's why you have to take a pay order, go to one of the two state banks and deposit there, and then it goes to the bank can purchase it, and once the funds get credited, only the goods can be released. Now the system we develop is where the bank, on behalf of his customer, or the customer using his banking network, the facility available with his bank, pays online to Director General Customs. So through our network, the funds get credited to Bank of Ceylon or to People's Bank for account of Director General Customs.
Right.
And immediately a message goes to Director General Customs, your account has been credited X amount on behalf of Y.
So and so, the custom.
Yeah.
Ms. Amalsuri, now you know that Sri Lanka has had a bad past with regard to financial defrauding, various financial malpractices. How is the security of this particular system that we are talking about?
Well, I am proud to say that Lanka Clear is PCI DSS,
which means
Industry Data Security Standard 3.2 certified.
Right.
So we are at the highest standard of data security, and we have at all times to abide by the standards, the guidelines set by that authority.
Right.
So therefore we are following the current international data security standards, and what we do is we get a message and let it flow through. We don't see what the message is all about because it's all encrypted.
Right.
So an encrypted message comes to us, we like take it in on one end of our pipe and put it out at the other end to the other bank.
Right.
So the data is totally encrypted and secure.
When creating a payment platform like this, now the central bank being the authority that is in with the task of regulating your, what does the central bank look at? What's the legal framework like? What do the central bank individuals, or as the regulatory authority, what do they want in this payment platform? Do they want security? Do they want it to be fast? What is their looking? What is their angle?
Yeah. They want everything. They want it to be fully secured. They want it to be efficient. They want it to be the speed, and they also want to ensure that the settlement is done in a proper manner, because the final settlement takes place by the central bank.
A legal framework of this. Now we know that our country does not have a privacy act, our country does not have a separate act that monitors data protection. We know that there are several loopholes in our legal framework as well. When you create a payment platform like this by a private company in our country, that is obviously overlooked by the central bank, but what is the legal framework like? What are your concerns there?
Well, any similar function as per the prevailing laws of this country has to be by an entity that is regulated by the central bank. So if there is an entity that is not regulated by the central bank trying to do something like this, then the laws of the country will have to be amended.
What's the next step looking like? Now we know that the customs is integrated into one system where the commercial banks can also carry out transactions. What's going to be the next step? What is the future plan of the Lanka Clear Private Limited?
Well, if you are talking about the private sector, you can pay your telephone bills, you can pay your electricity bill, water bill. The banks that are offering that service, a customer can use the network and the switching services provided by Lanka Clear and successfully conclude that transaction, because the money can flow from bank A to bank B. And the channels open are the internet channel, the ATM network, over the counter. When it comes to state sector, now we have been mandated, requested to do the customs. Now this also can be extended to probably the Indian Revenue Department and other state bodies. That
because the other countries have systems like this in place already, and we are already at the end of 2017, and we are still talking about a system where the state institutions can be, transactions can be carried out with the state institution. I think we are a bit behind when it comes to this.
Yeah, we probably the implementation right now we are behind, but we can always catch up, because once you do one institution, the framework and the infrastructure can be used to cover other institutions.
How long did you take to create this system that is in place with the Asikuda system or the Sri Lanka Customs? How long? What's the time frame looking like?
Well, we managed to do it in a period of 6 months.
the total system now, the success rate of it, how well it operates, also has to be monitored. Are you all doing that in the future, or are you all handing it over to the customs, and is the job of the Lanka Clear with regard to the software development done?
The software development, getting the data from Asikuda, giving it to the customer, and the customer making the payment, and that data going back to customs is our responsibility.
Throughout, that's going to be there.
Yeah.
Yes. Mr. Amanasuriya, now moving on from there to this national payment platform, you said that this was the first step, the customs data clearance system was the first step of this. What are the challenges that you have, or what are the problems that you all think you will face when creating this national payment platform? Where do things get easy for you all?
Well, if I were to talk about the challenges, I think the challenge will be to get the common person, the person out there in the village, to benefit from this technology, to benefit from this ease of convenience and the speed at which payments can be made. So to do that, you have to expand the reach and expand the base.
Right.
Now, expanding the reach and expanding the base will primarily the responsibility lie with the banks.
Right.
Because as per the rules of this country, payment cards can be issued by an institute, financial institute approved by the central bank. And even the institute might be approved, by the issuance of cards might not be approved. Right. So you have to get specific approval for the card also to be issued.
Right.
So the more customers, the customer base gets bigger when there are more cards out there in the market, and it has to move to all corners of the country. If a person as far as Kataragama or as far as Jaffna wants to make a payment, today it can be a customs payment, tomorrow it can be something else. So without traveling all the way to Colombo, if you can do it, look at the expansion, the economy, how it's going to take off. And also, instead of carrying cash, because cash has a cost. What we are trying to do, our Lanka Clear's main focus is our competition is with cash. We are trying to reduce the use of cash. It's estimated that if you can reduce the use of cash, it will add about a good 2% to the GDP.
With that, we have to go into another short commercial break. The government's objective, or the policy of the government, is to digitize the economy. Where does Lanka Clear fit in this policy of the government? We'll talk to Mr. Amarasuriya right now. Mr. Amarasuriya, now we know that Sri Lanka is developing in terms of financial aspects, economic aspects, and we know that the financial city is coming up. Your system that you have put in place has to obviously develop and expand as we go along. So Lanka Clear Private Limited is equipped to do this task, to expand and develop the system, to amalgamate more and more customers into it?
Yes, of course. Because whenever we have been investing, starting from the check truncating, we have been investing in the latest cutting edge technology.
Right.
So right throughout we have been acquiring cutting edge technology that is out there for us to use. So it can be expanded, but unfortunately technology becomes obsolete in next to no time. What is current today in 2 years might be obsolete. So you have to keep on investing in the infrastructure.
Mr. Amarasuriya, now we know that Lanka Clear, we spoke on the first session that Lanka Clear is the only company who does this type of activity with the Central Bank of Sri Lanka. So there is no competition for you all at the moment. How do you see this?
Well, I think personally I would love competition to come in. Because when there is competition, only your service standards and everything improves. Right now, we create that competition for ourselves, although there is no competitor, by maintaining adequate service levels to our customers. We monitor how much downtime our system is. Right through the last 2-3 years, we have been achieving 99.8% uptime. Now those we do on our own. But there might be others where if there's competition, innovation will be more
coming in.
Yeah, so when one person innovates, the other to be the competition will have to find something better to do. So I personally feel competition is good.
Do you think that the country or internationally, the fact that matters that are financial or matters that should be regulated should be with private companies in the first place? Now you all are under the Central Bank of Sri Lanka, that's understood, you all are a public-private partnership, but giving all these matters completely to a private company, is that advisable?
Personally, I don't think it is advisable because there is sensitive data. Sensitive data that should not be misused, or in today's context, attacks being made on the database and somebody taking it out. So in that respect, it probably should not be in the hands of a private company. There is certain information any country will not want to let a totally private owned company to handle. But having said that, as long as that company is regulated and regulated in the proper manner without any interference, it can be overcome. So it will have to first look at the model, but the model will have to be robust and highly regulated.
Mr. Amanasuriya, one more point, one more interesting factor that you are bringing up here is that the controlling of this data that you all receive, even at present, you all have to store it somewhere. How does this work? I spoke to you earlier about the Privacy Act not being available in our country. We don't have laws with regard to data storage. At present, how does Lanka Clear Private Limited store their data, in servers outside or clouds? What's going to happen there?
All our servers are in the country, in our office, and at the DR site. And everything that goes through our tunnel or is somewhat stored, we don't have to store because we do it's like water passing through a tunnel. But that data is all encrypted. So we cannot decrypt it without the keys, and the keys are not with us.
With regard to the information, once again, you know that the information that financial individuals, companies like you receive are very valuable for MNCs, various MNCs in the outside world. Private companies can definitely tap into this information, but you're telling me that your system is highly secure and that you cannot do this. But once this goes to a private company, once again I'm coming back to that question, can we assure that at any point that the security is there?
Well, it's not impossible. If I say it's impossible, I'm wrong. Say, for example, today, if a company is PCI DSS certified, that's the highest level of security that is there in the world. So you can't do any better. So if the entity you are talking about is PCI DSS, the later version certified, then the control, the security is in place. But whether you deliberately try to tweak it and take something out is not impossible.
One final question before we wrap up, Mr. Amanasuriya. We know that the Central Bank of Sri Lanka is under much controversy with regard to the bond scam that happened in the recent past. Your institution is under the Central Bank of Sri Lanka. Is there room in the future for Lanka Clear Private Limited also to be involved in some form of scam? Or are you able to assure as the chairman that Lanka Clear Private Limited will be running smoothly as it is running now?
Well, I would like to make one correction. We are not under the control of Central Bank. We are regulated by Central Bank. There's a vast difference between being regulated and controlled. We are regulated by the Central Bank, and that regulation is complete. When it comes to control, Central Bank owns only 28%. So the commercial banks will be having the control. So yes, we can assure that we will not be under pressure to do something that is not right, because there are directors from commercial banks sitting there. So I'm sure they're not going to permit or yield to pressure, do something. So regulation and control are two different aspects, and when it comes to control, 28% with central bank, majority with the commercial banks.
Thank you very much, Mr. Amarasuriya, for being here with us in the studio today. That's all we have for you from Biz1st in Focus. We'll be joining you next week as well, same time, same place, with an interesting guest like Mr. Amarasuriya. Stay with us. You're watching Biz1st in Focus.